Hello, everybody. Welcome to the lunch table. My name's Evan, joined with my amazing co-hosts Nick and Zach. And today we have Mock Draft 2.0 for you. We are 9 days from the NFL draft, so getting close. So we're going to give you all another mock draft today. But before we dive in, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and to follow us on Instagram and TikTok. We'd appreciate it. So without further ado, I will pull up the mock draft simulator and we will dive in. Zach has the first overall pick this time.
Yes.
So let me just make sure everything's all good. All right, Zach, you're up with the Tennessee Titans. Who were they selecting?
So this is kind of a tough situation here, because I think I've touched on this before, and I think it's the same situation that the Browns are in. I obviously they desperately need a quarterback to kind of turn the franchise around here because Will Levis is not the guy. Um, but the problem is that I don't really like the quarterbacks in this class. Um, and you've got guys like Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter, who I think are probably the two best players in this draft class, regardless of position. Maybe you take one of those two guys and kind of just struggle through the year, and then you put yourself in a position to hopefully get a quarterback in next year's class, which is a lot better of a quarterback class. So I've touched on that before. I don't there there's two ways the Titans are going to go here. They're either going to take Cam Ward or they're going to take Abdul Carter. And I think that for the sake of this mock, I'm going to draft as what I think is going to happen, not what I would personally do. So I'm going to take Cam Ward here.
Yeah, it's pretty much a given at this point.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
pretty
just
sure
saying
he's.
personally, if I was in their shoes, I would probably take Abdul Carter, but we'll go Cam Ward.
The Titans love Cam Ward, though. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's their guy. He'll. I
yeah.
think he's like minus like 5,000 odds to be
yeah,
the
Oh,
first overall
seriously?
pick.
So it's like
yeah,
not even a
it's
question.
like a
It's
foregone
not a
conclusion at
question.
this point that they're going to take
Oh,
Cam Ward at
okay.
number one.
Well, then, yeah, definitely Cam Ward here.
All right, Nick Brown's at number 2.
Um, Cleveland at number 2. Yeah, I've seen a couple of people say that they would consider taking Shador at number 2. I think there's absolutely no way that they do that. So they're in a position where they can really just you know load up defensively on an already loaded roster defensively. So it's a question on whether they want to make their edge room absolutely disgusting and unstoppable, or if they want to get who is, for my money, probably the best player in this draft class in Travis Hunter. And I think I'm going to go with the best player in this draft class in Travis Hunter for the Browns in this situation. Heisman winner. It's still to be determined whether he's going to play wide receiver or corner in the NFL. If not both, he's probably going to try to give it both. Probably going to try to give both his best shot, obviously. But the NFL is a completely different ballgame. So we will see what happens when he gets there. But yeah, I like Travis Hunter for the Browns at number 2. Boosts their receiver room a little bit and also just makes that defense disgusting.
Yeah, I think the Browns are in a luxury position here because they get the pick of the two best players in the draft. So
And Travis came out the other day and said if he doesn't play both ways, then he will not be playing at all. So I believe the full
I just don't think
his
that's true.
his full intent is that he's going to at least try to play both ways, at least in the start of his career.
What are you
So
going here, Evan? Heard some interesting news with the Giants, I think, recently.
yeah, so the Giants at 3, obviously a potential Shador Sanders spot with their needs at quarterback. Even though they have Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson, obviously both of those are not long-term answers. But from what I've heard is that they're kind of not shying away from Shador, but I think it's split pretty 50-50. Like some people like him, some people don't in the Giants camp. Uh, but from what a lot of experts are saying, a lot of mocks, I think they're probably just going to go BPA, back push the quarterback selection till next year because you have Jameis and Russell Wilson that can at least get you by. And like Zach was saying earlier, I don't think somebody. I don't think Shador is worth a top 3 pick. So with that being said, I'm going to have them draft Abdul Carter, who is my number 2 player in this draft. Edge rusher. Yes, they have Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau, but with the Giants, they just need players that are good. And Abdul Carter is a freak of nature, and that could maybe even make Kayvon Thibodeau expendable. He's been kind of disappointing, but now you have Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, and Abdul Carter. That's a pretty formidable defensive line in a division that has Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, Dak Prescott, guys like that. So you're going to have a good defensive line to really stop them. So I think it's a pretty easy pick here for the Giants at 3 going Abdul Carter. All right. Zach, you're back up at number 4.
Awesome. All right. So the Patriots, I had the Patriots in my last mock draft as well. And personally, the Patriots are one of my favorite teams this offseason to work with. I enjoy looking at what they've done and giving them a mock. So I am going to probably, obviously offensive line is a pretty big need for them. And you've got the best lineman and Will Campbell sitting right here. But they also are in desperate need of offensive weapons. They brought in Stephon Diggs. I think Stephon Diggs is going to cap out at a good wide receiver 2. I don't think he's the dominant wide receiver 1 that he was with the Vikings and the Bills. So you're desperately in need of receiver / just weapon help, but you also need line. So you can go either direction here offensively. In free agency, I would personally say they addressed the offensive line more than receiver in free agency. They brought in Morgan Moses, some other offensive linemen that they've brought in. So, Morgan Moses was kind of the headline offensive lineman they brought in, but they signed several different offensive linemen to kind of help with that issue. And they brought in Stephon Diggs, as I said, and that was it. So I'm going to just stick with what I mocked him last time because I love this mock, and I think him paired with young Drake May would be really cool and just kind of help the offense take the next level. So I'm going to go with Tet here. I'm a really big fan of him. What?
T-Mac.
Yeah, I'm a really, really big fan of Tet. So I think him to the Patriots would be a very good pick, even though just about every mock has them going O-line. I think either way is a valid option. I do think, as I'm saying this, something popped into my mind. I do think something to consider with the Patriots is the hiring of Mike Vrabel. Not a very pass-heavy guy, so I think that could sway it to the offensive line with Will Campbell. But if it was me here, I'd be taking Tet because I'm a big fan of him. And I think getting a solidified 1 for Drake May would be a really big help for the second-year quarterback.
Yeah, I think odds are Campbell's probably the pick. Like you said, I'm pretty sure every single mock draft I've seen in the last 3 weeks has had him going there. And I think Tet's falling a little bit due to...
He is, but I don't really... Why?
Well, because he came out and said he doesn't watch film and he doesn't love football. So that has kind of turned a lot of people off. And I think some of his, he didn't run as fast, I think, as some people thought. But... yeah, I mean, they have a big hole at wide receiver and offensive line. Personally, I just think where they are, you have to protect Drake May, and they'll probably do that with Will Campbell. Even though I'm still on the fence if he's going to actually be like a premier tackle, but
he's going to be a premier O lineman.
Yeah,
I am 100% confident in that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. But if it was me, I like Tet. I mean, I don't really care what his 40-yard dash time is. I think you turn the film on, and he's a very good receiver. He's tall, he's big, he's fast. And the Patriots have nothing at receiver, so.
Yeah, no doubt. Throwing a wrench in things.
Yeah, dude. I did it last time, and I'm going to do it again because I like that pick.
All right, Nick, you got 5 with the Jags.
with the Jags, I could be a real scumbag and just give them a terrible pick because they're a division rival. But I'm not going to do that, right? There's been a little bit of hype on them potentially taking Tyler Warren at 5. I've seen just because they've already
Who's
got
their
Brian.
tight end right now?
They don't
Brendan
have one.
Strange.
Yeah, because Evan
that's
Ingram's on the
right.
Broncos
they got rid
now.
of Evan Ingram.
And with, them investing all this money in Trevor Lawrence and then getting them Brian Thomas and an offensive-minded head coach, to give him a guy like Tyler Warren as a safety blanket could legitimately turn some heads. But I think
That might be a solid pick,
by
honestly.
far the biggest need on this team is defensive line. And I think in this particular scenario, it is very obvious who they should take here, and they should take Mason Graham, best defensive lineman in the class, in my opinion, by a country mile. He is an absolute monster in run stop, and in rushing the passer. He is a massive human being, wall of a man. And he will definitely help that interior D-line for Jacksonville to get some more pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah, I like that pick. It's pretty much that's been mocked since basically the end of the season.
Yeah.
Like it's been pretty set in stone. But the Tyler Warren conversation I have heard kind of ramping up a little bit, but with
I would like that.
James
I don't
Gladstone's
think it's going to happen,
background.
but I could see it.
Yeah, but with their new GM, was it James Gladstone? I think his
Yeah.
name. His background, he drafted Jared Verse and Brandon Fisk and Kobe Turner, guys like that. So he likes those defensive linemen, and so I think Mason Graham obviously fits because he's the best interior one at least in the class. So, and he's a monster.
I'm interested to see where you're going to go here, Evan.
Yeah, you made it a little bit more difficult with Will Campbell still on the board.
Yeah.
But I think it's just the Raiders have one glaring need that is just so big that I think it's really tough to pass up on. And there's one player that's just so good that warrants being selected at this spot. And I think that's Ashton Genty. Yes, it's a running back in the top 6 picks, but Ashton
Did you
Genty
watch
is
Ashton Genty play last
one
year?
of the best running back prospects we have seen in recent memory. He's an absolute stud. And with the Raiders, a team that really likes to run the ball, I think they were dead last in run game efficiency last year. Like they were absolutely horrible with Zamir White. And so now they have Raheem Mostert, who's like 32 or 33. So getting a running back, and they do have a solid offensive line as it stands with Colton Miller, Jackson Powers-Johnson, Dylan Parham. They added Alex Kappa. So they have a pretty solid offensive line. So I think with Geno now as the quarterback there, getting Ashton Genty, getting him a little bit some more weapons, I think is big. And I think that's a match made in heaven for both parties.
Goes from Boise to Vegas.
Yeah.
What a change
Culture
of lifestyle.
Yeah.
All right, Zach, you have the Jets at 7.
So here, Evan, I'm going to cut this real quick and edit this out.
Okay.
I'm looking at tackle or Tyler Warren. Is tackle egregious here? Like, is that like just heresy?
No.
Okay,
No,
all right. Just making
that's
sure.
like-
I'm looking at their depth chart right now, and I don't recognize any of their offensive linemen,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
wasn't sure
They're-
if they were
They're mocked like 50-50 to tackle and Warren.
okay.
And
Okay,
most mocks, Will Campbell's on the board, so it's between Mimbu and
and
Warren.
Warren.
Yeah. I just
Will
wasn't
Campbell.
sure because, like I said, I'm looking at their roster, and I don't recognize any of these linemen.
Yeah.
But I wasn't
need a
sure
right
if maybe I
tackle
just
really
didn't know
bad.
any of them.
Yeah, well, so the thing with the Jets is they need a right tackle really bad, but they also love Tyler Warren.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's,
I mean,
it's kind
Jeremy
of tough.
Ruckert's they don't really have their tight end's pretty weak, but I mean, honestly, yeah.
So it's a
Yeah.
50-50 between tackle and tight end. So whatever you feel.
Well, I know what I'm going to do, so let's do it. Restart. So for the Jets here, I'm looking at 2 players, and due to my last pick with the Patriots, there's one really solid player still on the board here, and I'm going to take Will Campbell for the Jets. I think he has a chance to be the best all around lineman in this draft class. And the Jets are in need of offensive line. So, I know the other position that has been looked at a lot is tight end with Tyler Warren. Their starting tight end is Jeremy Ruckert. So that is a position of need, but I think offensive line, man, when you got a hole in offensive line, I think that's got to be what's gets plugged. My own, like with the Patriots, I feel like the Patriots made some adjustments to the line in free agency, but I don't really think the Jets have. So I think that needs to be addressed, especially with young quarterback Justin Fields on his third team. I think this is kind of his last shot, so you want to give him some protection. I mean, he's got Garrett Wilson and Brees Hall. They got some decent offensive weapons, so I think we just need to make sure that they shore up the offensive line protection wise. And with Will Campbell being on the board, it's a little bit easier of a pick.
Yeah. I will say, just imagine the offensive cornerstone pieces of Garrett Wilson, Tyler Warren, and Brees Hall for the next 5 to 8 years.
That would be pretty crazy.
That's a pretty crazy. But yeah, they do need offensive, basically more a right tackle really badly. And yeah, with Justin Fields, you want to keep him upright, obviously keep him in the pocket as much as possible. But I do think the Jets do really like Tyler Warren, so that's kind of more of a fun pick.
Yeah.
They would just have an absurd amount of weapons, but I think offensive tackle is probably a bigger need in the future. So.
Yeah.
All right, Nick, you got Carolina at 8.
Yeah, I was really, kind of, not frustrated is not the right word with Weaver taking Tet at 4, because I was looking at him at 8 for Carolina.
Yeah, you threw a wrench in the bunch of
most
things.
mocks are, but
yeah, I think he
throw
would
a wrench into it.
I think he would be perfect for Bryce Young in this situation, especially with how he closed out last year. But he's not there, so I've got to go a different route. And even with this route, I feel like this is where most mocks have the Panthers going at 8. Because the Panthers kind of need help at both edge and interior or inside linebacker, I'm going to take a guy that can play both positions in Jalen Walker from Georgia. And I mean, ever since really, like Evan was saying, start of the offseason, a bunch of mocks have been closer to getting Jalen Walker to the Panthers, and their GM came out today and said that he will be playing as a linebacker for the Panthers if we draft him. So he's not exactly dispelling the rumors. I think it's a great fit in Carolina. I think they need both edge and linebacker. So get a guy that can play both in certain situations, and he's just a really good football player. So I think that's the route I'm going to go with the Panthers.
So this pick's tough for me because there's 2 guys that I'm really eyeing.
For the New Orleans.
Yeah. Obviously, with the news about Derek Carr potentially missing a decent chunk of the season with a shoulder injury and him probably being on the way out as it was. But then you also still have other holes on that team. They could still use some offensive line help. So I'm really narrowing it down to about 2 players. One player that I was originally without a doubt going to take, but now I'm kind of questioning myself. But I think I'll stick with my gut. I'm going to go Shedeur Sanders here at 9. I think this is where his slide stops. A team that we've talked about, a team that just always seems to kick the can down the road when it comes to the quarterback position. Since Drew Brees has obviously post Drew Brees era, but now bringing in Shedeur, he doesn't have to play right away if Derek Carr is healthy, but Derek Carr probably won't. So, Shedeur steps in right there. He's not an elite athlete, doesn't have a great arm either, but he's very accurate. Has good IQ. Obviously his dad's Deion Sanders. So, but I think he fits what the Saints want, and they just desperately need a quarterback. And I think now is the time to take one rather than banking on Spencer Rattler becoming a franchise guy. Armand Membu was the other guy I was thinking of. I think he definitely could plug in that right tackle, and they would have a pretty solid offensive line. But I think Shador is they just need quarterbacks so badly now with Derek Carr potentially missing them like a decent chunk of the season. And him this will probably be his last year in New Orleans anyway. So we're gonna go Shador Sanders here at 9.
I like it. I think that's probably what I would do too, honestly. Got to get a quarterback at some point.
All right, you got 10, I think.
Yeah, I got the Bears. This is a fun one. The Bears.
The Bears.
This is a fun one again for me because this is a BPA pick. The Bears had a extremely good offseason. We talked about that in one of our other our free agency grades. The Bears don't really have a lot of needs right now. So I'm eyeing 2 guys. And one of them is a little bit more fun than the other. I really do think this is a BPA pick because they plugged a lot of their needs. So, for kicks and giggles, we're going to make things interesting, and I'm going to take Tyler Warren here.
That's infuriating. If this happens in real life, I'm going to be so mad.
Why?
I don't know. Why would the Bears take Tyler Warren at all?
It's a BPA pick.
That's strength
Nick,
of the O-line.
he's been mocked to the Bears in several mock drafts.
I don't care.
He has also been mocked to them.
Because
so, this is not totally out of bounds.
No, because Cole Kmet can be your outside, more receiving tight end, and then Warren in 12 personnel can kind of be your do-it-all guy.
I will hate on the Bears for this.
He's just a utility football player. I mean, he's the best player on this board right now, and they don't really have a lot of holes on this team. They did a really good job in free agency. They set themselves up very well. So I think it's just taking the best player on the board. Tyler Warren's a great utility player. You can use him just about everywhere on the field.
I'll go to Chicago and protest. If this happens.
I was looking at the Membo or whatever his name is too, but just take a utility player.
Yeah.
And it'll be really fun to see him with Ben Johnson too.
Yeah. We saw what
I knew Nick was going to be mad about that though. It was looking good for a while there, Nick.
Once he got past New Orleans, I was like, okay, there's a real legitimate chance.
Who did you think I was going to take just now?
I thought you were going to take Membu or Kelvin Banks. I thought you were going to go O-line. I think that's what they should do.
Yeah, it was either O-line or...
They do not need receiving help at all.
But they have Wright and what's his name?
Darnell Wright, Jonah Jackson, Joe Tooney. I mean, their line is decent. Their left tackle is Braxton Jones.
Yeah, their offensive line, I think, is fairly shored up for the moment.
Yeah, that's why I think it's a BPA thing. I mean, they easily could go Membo and just totally shore up the left tackle spot, but I don't think it's a glaring need at this current moment.
Down.
You thought for sure he was going to get to the Colts.
I did after he got past New Orleans.
We'll see how the actual draft goes, I guess.
To be truthfully honest with you, I don't think Tyler Warren's going to get to New Orleans. I think some
he's going to go at Jets?
Some team is going to trade up to get him. Or the Jets might take him at 7.
I think he definitely goes top 10.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I would say top 10. I don't know if he's going to... Yeah, top 10.
All right, Nick, you're at 11 with the 49ers.
49ers! This is a spot where I could see a team trading back because after this past offseason, the 49ers need a lot.
Yeah.
They corner, O-line, receiver they could use. They need a bunch. They need a bunch of stuff. So there's a lot of different options for me here. Here at pick 11. I'm going to go with the guy that I'm the highest on in the position that I think makes the most sense for them, and I think that's Will Johnson at number 12. I get he has injury concerns, but this man is a freak at corner. I'm not going to let last year, where he was essentially all they had on the secondary define how my view of him as a player is. He is, in my opinion, the best corner in this class. And I get he's been hurt. He has injury concerns, but I've watched him play. We've seen him play for the past few years at Michigan. He's a monster. So I think it's a good Charvarius Ward replacement. He's a Colt now, so I'm pretty excited about that. But I think that is going to be the start of rebuilding their defense here at number 11.
What was that?
I just dropped something. All right. Now I am up with the Cowboys at 12. The Cowboys need a few things. They need a wide receiver mainly as a co-partner to CeeDee Lamb. But Armand Membu's still on the board, which he won't be. I can almost guarantee you that he will not be here at pick 12.
How did we get here?
You took Tet, and that screwed everything up. So I'll take Membu, shore up that right tackle's position. Right now it's Terrence Steele. So shore up that right tackle position, help Dak Prescott stay upright. He's had some pretty bad injuries the last few years. Even though they desperately need a wide receiver, you can probably still get one in like the later rounds. But Membu is, I think, going to be a top 10 guy. I think he's right up there with Will Campbell. He's an absolute freak athlete. Did really well in the combine, and he'll be an immediate starter at right tackle, whatever team he goes to. And I can almost guarantee you he will not be here at pick 12 once the draft rolls around.
All right,
You
so I got
the
the Dolphins.
13.
All right, so the Dolphins, I think, have pretty decent amount of needs here. I think I'm going to go with. Oh, boy. Well, I just saw a name on their current depth chart. Because of that name that I just saw, I am going to be taking Kelvin Banks here for the Dolphins. Because their current starting right tackle is Jackson Carman. And that's not going to work for anybody. I can tell you firsthand.
Because didn't what's his face retire? Did they?
I know who you're
Armstead,
talking
right?
about, but
Teron Armstead.
Yeah.
So they need O-line help.
Yeah, so we're going to be going Kelvin Banks here for sure. They need some defensive pieces too, but when you see Jackson Carman starting at tackle, that's when you know you got a desperate situation that you need to fix immediately.
Yeah, I agree. Jalen Ramsey also requested a trade, so
yeah,
he did.
He might get traded.
But with
well.
the Michigan guy going off the board,
William.
Yeah.
No, yeah, you can't go into next season with Jackson Carman as starting right tackle.
You can't.
No, trust me, we would know.
Yeah. All right, Nick, you got your Colts.
I got my Colts at 14. Full context here. I don't expect Tyler Warren to be sitting here in this position. But if he is, Chris Ballard needs to be spamming his phone number until he just keep calling him until he picks up. Because
he will continuously decline.
He will. No, he won't. He will not. But since he's off the board, I think there is 3 ways they can go. I think they could go in a similar route and just get the next best tight end, Colston Loveland, who I would not be mad at. I think they could get, with Will Fries being gone in free agency, a guy like Tyler Booker for that interior offensive line. I'd be okay with him. I'd also be okay with a guy like Jihad Campbell to help out the linebacker core. But I think that one need is very clearly bigger than the others, and that's tight end. So I cannot believe that my last 3 picks have been Michigan players. But hold on. No. 3 of my last 4, I had Mason Graham, Will Johnson, and now Colston Loveland for the Colts. But, I mean, this is just the way the board's fallen. It's very clearly a safety blanket hopefully for Anthony Richardson. That's still to be determined.
Oh, you mean Daniel Jones, actually.
Yeah, you're hilarious. But it'll be a safety blanket for whoever's the week 1 starter, which will be Anthony Richardson. But you know, who knows? Colson Loveland's a very good receiving tight end. And you know, he's a big body. He's JJ McCarthy's favorite target at Michigan. It's because he's a good player. So I'm gonna take him here at 14.
All right. All right, I'm up at 15 with the Atlanta Falcons. They desperately need edge help, and there's a lot of good edge rushers and still on the board. Shamar Stewart, Michael Williams, Mike Green, James Pierce, Donovan Izaraku. But one guy was the most productive out of all of them, and that was Mike Green. So I'm going to go with him. He had 17.5 sacks this past year with Marshall. He's an absolute stud, was an absolute beast at the Senior Bowl, and will provide immediate edge help to the Falcons, which is much, much needed. So you're hoping that he can bring that 17.5 sacks from college and hope to have elite or top tier sack production in the NFL. And so I like Mike Green as a player. I think he's really good. He does have some like off field stuff, but those might have gotten resolved, but I haven't checked. But nonetheless, he's a great player. And so I think he will fit a glaring need there for the Falcons. Are you guys trading this pick?
Yeah, I'm cool with it.
So
All right, go for it. Take the Cardinals.
So you got
I
16.
will have the Cardinals at 16. I think the Cardinals very clearly also need edge help. And you guys know I love my athletes. And one of the biggest freak athletes is still on the board in Shamar Stewart. So I will be taking Shamar Stewart for the Cardinals here. If you watch his combine, that was a thing of nature. Like that was a special combine performance from Shamar Stewart. I'm not fully confident in the Cardinals developing him, so I could see them taking like a Michael Williams, or if Mike Green's still on the board, take a Mike Green. But I think they'll go edge here. And I'm a big fan of Shamar Stewart, so I think his ceiling is by far the highest of the three. So I'm gonna go with him and bank on the upside.
Yeah, I mean, if he hits, then you have Josh Sweat on one side and Shamar Stewart on the other.
Yeah, it's a pretty good edge duo for the Cardinals. The Cardinals.
Check with the Bungles here at 17.
The Bungles.
Give me 1 second here to check something out before I make the pick.
You know what you must do.
Oh, I know what I'm doing. It's just gonna be one of two guys.
You know what you must do.
Let's see here.
Go ahead and take Matthew Golden here.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Go ahead and take another receiver.
So he's had Yeah, so there's that. Let me look one more thing up here. I gotta get this right.
There's one guy that I would take.
Oh, I know who you're taking.
He already knows.
Yeah, I know who you're taking. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think I know who I'm gonna take here too, actually now. Well, that's not really what you want to see though, but I guess let's see here. Shoot, dude. Yeah, Yeah, there's two guys that I'm looking at right now.
There's a lot of options on the board here.
Are you guys gonna be a fan of this board if it plays out this way?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay.
I would say so, yeah. I'd be more of a fan if like Mike Green or like Kelvin Banks was still there.
I mean, in my personal opinion, there's really two guys that I'm really looking at and wanting the Bengals to take here. I mean, if Mike Green's there, then that might throw a little bit of a wrench in it. But personally, I'm kind of sold on two other guys anyways. So I like the way this board looks. And I'll just say, we talked about it in the Around the Jungle podcast at length here, but the Bengals are really just, they put themselves in a tough spot with sitting on their butts in free agency, not addressing the interior O line or the edge positions. So we desperately need both of them. But you can only take one here. And I think, as we discussed earlier, the Bengals are really just in need of a defensive playmaker. Dang near regardless of position, they just need somebody who's going to step in and make plays for them, because their defense is the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life. So I'm going to probably, there's two guys here. I genuinely would not care either one that got picked. Don't care at all. But for the sake of this draft, I'm going to go Jihad Campbell, because I think he is just more of a well-rounded overall playmaker than Mykel Williams, who was the other guy I was looking at. There's a lot to like here with both guys. Like I said, Jihad Campbell is actually more of a linebacker, so that's not really addressing the edge quite as much, but he's such a versatile guy. He can really do it all between edge and linebacker. So he's just a more utility, well-rounded defensive player. And like I said, the Bengals are so god-awful on defense that they need guys that are going to come in and immediately make plays regardless of position. So I think that's a good fit for him. However, with Mykel Williams, he's only like 20. So there's a lot to like there too. But we'll go with a surefire playmaker on defense.
Yeah, both are really good players, but Campbell is just an elite athlete, Swiss Army knife, like you said. You could play him at middle linebacker, you could play him at edge. I think with Al Golden's background as a linebacking coach, I think Jihad Campbell could be intriguing to him. And yeah, when you just need a guy, the Bengals just need a guy who can come in immediately and make a difference. And I think Jihad Campbell is top of that list of guys that can do that. So. All right, I'm up with the Seahawks at 18. This pick's fairly simple. Their offensive line is atrocious, especially the interior. So I'm going to go with Gray Zabel, the interior offensive lineman from North Dakota State, helped shore up that interior offensive line that desperately needs help now with new quarterback Sam Darnold. Yes, they could possibly use a wide receiver, but they did just get Cooper. They got Cooper Kupp. So their wide receiver room is odd, but it's JSN, Cooper Kupp, and I don't know who their three is, but I don't think a guy like Matthew Golden really helps them as much as a guy like Gray Zabel would. So they desperately need an interior offensive line, and they got a pretty good one with Zabel, who can play really all the positions on the line. He can play tackle, guard, and center. So very versatile guy, which I think will be very, very helpful for them. All right. I think, Zach, you're back up with 9.
Okay, I got the
You got Tampa.
19, sorry. So yeah, back in the normal order.
All right. My bad. I was looking at the Broncos. Okay. Let me pull something up real quick. So for the Buccaneers here, I think that I'm going to be looking probably more in the defensive side of the ball. I think quarterback's fine, running back's fine, wide receiver's fine. They got K. Dotton, and the two best tight ends are already off the board. O-line's pretty solid. You got Tristan Wirfs. So you're looking pretty decent on the offensive side. I think on the defensive side, defensive backs, probably use a little bit of work at the defensive back room. Corner, I would probably say. They did just sign Hassan Reddick, so I think that's a good signing for him. But I think that looking at the Buccaneers' defensive backfield, I'm going to probably select, scroll back up at the top. I think Jahdae Barron. I think he's a very good corner, and he's still on the board here. So we'll take him for the Buccaneers, and he'll fill in for what I think is a little bit weaker of a corner room. So get some defensive help there for him. I think their offense is pretty set. So
I like that fit. All right, Nick, you're at 20 with the Broncos.
I'm shocked Matthew Golden's still on the board here. I think if you're Denver in this situation and you see Matthew Golden sitting at pick 20, you are spamming the call button. So I'm going to take Matthew Golden here. They do not need defensive help at all. They had arguably the best defense in football for a large chunk of the season last year. If Jahdae Barron was still there, it would be tempting to just make their DB room absolutely gross. But I don't think they would have even done that even if he was sitting there, because they have the Defensive Player of the Year in their DB room with Pat Surtain. So yeah, Matthew Golden, Bo Nix, shocked a lot of people, including myself, for this play.
Not me.
Yeah, not you. He sure did me though. So yeah, I think Matthew Golden, he's silky smooth with his route running and his mechanics at the receiver position. He kind of has a bit of conflict with like Cortland Sutton, but he's getting a little up there in age. So maybe Golden becomes like his understudy for a couple of years, and then he blossoms into that true wide receiver one. But I love Matthew Golden as a receiver. I think he's risen as this draft process has gone along. And I think he's a great fit for Denver here at 20.
Yeah, I like it. The Steelers, they're also a team that desperately needs a quarterback, and I do think they really like Shedeur Sanders. So I do think in an ideal world for them, they're either trading up or hoping that he slides. I think if Shedeur does slide, this would be as far as it would get, would be here at 21. But Shedeur is not on the board. So I'm going to go in the interior defensive line with Cam Hayward getting up there in age, still a very productive player, but he is not getting any younger. So I'm going to go with Derek Harmon out of Oregon. Really good interior defensive lineman. He could also play a little bit of defensive end in certain formations. But yeah, I think the Steelers will probably still get Aaron Rodgers, if he even is going to, if he ever commits. But the Steelers are a team that likes to, be gnarly in the trenches, and I think Derek Harmon's a great player, so he'll fit right in as Cam Hayward's replacement once he eventually retires.
All right, so I got the Chargers now. I'm looking at two position groups here. Let's pull up the receiver room. I think that I don't think there's really a great fit receiver here. If Matthew Golden was here, I think I would have made that pick. But I feel like Emeka Egbuka is a similar position receiver to Ladd McConkey. So I just don't know if the Chargers would make that pick here. The other group I'm looking at is edge, with the departure of Joey Bosa. And I think that, especially with Jim Harbaugh as the head coach, I think that the trenches is definitely something that is important to him, as it should be. So I think that this is where the Mykel Williams slide stops. So I'll take Mykel Williams from the Chargers here. Great player, fill a hole that was left through free agency. And also, if you look at Khalil Mack, he's not getting any younger either. So I think if there's a receiver that's a good fit at this position, they would take it, because their receiving room outside of Ladd McConkey is really not good at all. I just feel like Egbuka is a very similar receiver to Ladd. Both strike me as slot guys, so I don't really know if that would be the pick that they'd make here, especially with Mykel Williams sitting on the board.
Fair enough. All right, Nick.
Green Bay at 23. Show the corner room for me real quick. I think that Green Bay very clearly needs a corner here, but the way this board has fallen, I don't love any of those players. So I think I'm going to take another Michigan man and Kenneth Grant here.
Well, you just drafted all the Michigan players.
Drafted all the Michigan guys. And you're wearing an Ohio State jersey, too.
This is heinous. I look like the biggest Buckeye hater of all time, but, this is how the board is falling. There's a lot of different routes that the Packers could go. They could go D-line with, as we said, Kenneth Grant, Derek Harmon. He's already gone. I think they need a corner, but Will Johnson's already gone. Jade Barron's already gone. A lot of the good edges are already gone. So I think they just stick with defense. They don't need safety at all because Xavier McKinney was really good for them last year. So I think Malachi Starks is a better player than Kenneth Grant, but I don't think the positional value exactly lines up for the Packers here. So, yeah, I'll go with the other Michigan D lineman here for Green Bay.
All right, I got the Vikings here at 24. They only have 4 picks in this draft, so they kind of need to hit on this first round. So the way that the board's fallen, I think there's one position group that I think is pretty big. And so I am going to go with my top safety in this class, and that's Nick Emanware. Absolute stud athlete, went nuts in the combine, and with Harrison Smith, being getting up there in age, he's probably got a year or 2 left in him, and with kind of they've had a few whiffs drafting safeties in the top 3 rounds. So, but Nick Emanware is a great safety, very athletic, very good at reading the quarterback's eyes and just making impact plays. And I think that's what the Vikings need defensively. They brought in Isaiah Rodgers. They have Byron Murphy. They kind of shored up their defensive line, but getting some extra help in the back end. Secondary, I think, would be huge. So Nick Emanware at pick 24.
All right, so with the Texans here, there's 2 routes in my mind. Okay. I'm just gonna wait till Evan gets back.
My computer's dying, so I just gotta charge it.
I understand.
I understand.
Okay, continue.
All right, so with the Texans here, I think that there's 2 routes that they can go. The Texans are a weird team right now. They egregiously blew up their offensive line in free agency and did not address it in the slightest. So their offensive line is probably the worst offensive line that I've ever seen outside of the Bengals 2021 offensive line. So I think offensive line is the utmost priority here. However, I think receivers a need too. Nico Collins is a stud, and outside of him, it's not great. I mean, Tank Dell's out for a while, and that's really about all they got, receiver-wise. So there's a receiver that I would love for them to take here, and I'm sure you guys know who that is. And I would do that, but, man, their offensive line is just horrible. I don't know if I'm loving a lot of guys. I mean, I know you got Tyler Booker for the interior, but they got to get a tackle.
They just need a lineman, dog. they just need someone.
I mean, how's that Oregon guy? Is he good?
Yeah, he's very good.
Is he better than Josh Simmons?
No.
Probably, yes.
Really?
Well, Josh Simmons, he's just falling due to
Yeah, he's hurt, but I mean, we watched Josh Simmons play. Josh Simmons was the best O lineman in the country.
But odds are Connor Lee will go ahead of Josh Simmons.
Yeah, I don't know how to make this pick here. What type of injury issues did Josh Simmons have?
Tore his patella tendon.
Yeah, he blew out his leg.
Oh, he did?
Against the Oregon game.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So I guess
that's the only reason that he's falling.
Maybe I can.
But they're both
here.
They're both very good players.
This is a tough pick, dude, because I don't think there's a clear offensive lineman, but they desperately need one. I think that I don't think they have the luxury of betting on, the upside of a guy that blew out his leg, because their offensive line is just so horrible. They got to get a safe guy who's decent. So I guess we'll go with Josh Connerly here. That's not who I would want to pick, but the Texans have done a very stupid thing this offseason with their offensive line, and that makes this pick not what I wanted to do. But because of their moronosity, it's what you got to do.
Nick, can we trade? Or do
Uh,
you have someone in mind? If you,
I
don't
mean,
have to trade.
I had someone in mind, but who are you wanting to trade with?
I have the Ravens.
I'm okay with that. Yeah, that's
swap
fine.
with you.
Evan, would you like to trade the Rams?
No, I got a pick that I'm really loving here.
All right,
and I think
go
it's going
for
to
it.
happen. All right. We're going to have ourselves a Jordan Love situation in Los Angeles. The Los Angeles Rams are going to be drafting Jackson Dart
Wow,
Out
that's
of-
interesting.
out of Ole Miss. Jackson Dart, I can almost guarantee you will be selected in the first round, whether it's a team trading up or a team like the Rams or the Steelers drafting him. But Dart can sit behind Stafford for a few years until Stafford is obviously ready to go. And then hopefully by then he'll be a little bit more developed. I do think he's a good quarterback. He has a lot of tools that make him a good quarterback, but I think he's my quarterback. He's my quarterback 3 in this class. Some people think he's better than Shador. Some people have him going all the way up at 9, but I think he's good. He's got a good arm. He can run a little bit. And I think he's just going to be a good player, and I think if he can learn from Matthew Stafford, I think that's going to be big for him to just learn from one of the better quarterbacks, better veteran quarterbacks in the league, and he's still insanely productive. Won a Super Bowl, so I think he can do a really good job mentoring Jackson Dart into a pretty decent player. The Rams are hoping. Was that the guy you were thinking, Nick, or were you going a different route?
No, I was gonna go a different route.
I'm actually mind blown that you just did that.
I don't think Jackson Dart is that good, personally.
Yeah, but do you know the needs of quarterbacks always pushes one into the first round?
I don't think it's warranted at all. But if there was a situation where he was going to flourish, I think the Rams, it could be a situation like that where he actually learns behind a good quarterback objectively. And
Sean McVay,
Sean McVay will
one of the best coaches in the league.
Put him in the best position to succeed in the future for sure.
I just am like, that was not even that wasn't even on my radar.
But I would fully be prepared that Jackson Dart will go in the first round.
Yeah, I'm expecting
Jackson
Dart to be a first rounder.
Rams.
Yeah,
I would just be more shocked that it's the Rams
since we're not doing trades.
Other needs.
Can't trade. No team can trade back up. So
yeah,
but I have seen a few mocks have him here at 26, and I think it'd be a fun pick.
Yeah.
Mentor behind Stafford, I think it's pretty good.
I feel like that would be the pick where everybody would be like, "What on earth?"
That would be the talking point after day 1 of the draft.
Yeah, it'd be like Michael Penix.
Kind of like yeah. That's what it would be like. I feel like.
All right, I guess I'm doing the Ravens here. I'm gonna continue drafting players that are rivals of Ohio State here. I think the Ravens need interior offensive line, more so than they do tackle. So I'm going to take Tyler Booker here from Alabama. They don't have a ton of holes. Their roster is one of the best in the league, obviously. But interior offensive line is one of them, and he is the best one left on the board. He's been mocked to the Ravens by a lot of different mock drafts. And he's a good player. I would not be shocked if he goes mid-first round, but the way the board falls, he did not. So I'm going to stop his slide here with the Ravens here at 27.
Glad you didn't pick Malachi Starks, because I've seen him mocked, and if Malachi Starks and Kyle Hamilton were both safeties, that would be
you would be terrified.
Yeah, I would not.
You would not be able to throw on them.
I would not enjoy that.
Have fun dealing with Kyle Hamilton in the nickel slot.
I mean, we did throw against them pretty well last year.
Yeah, but still,
we usually
that's not gonna continue.
All right, Zach.
Say that for yourself.
You're at the 28.
I got the Lions here. I'm looking
Scroll down so
at
you can see the board a little bit.
yeah, I'm looking at corner and I'm looking at edge, and I think I'm going to go edge here. I'm going to be taking James Pierce here. If Aiden Hutchinson for some reason isn't able to return to himself, um, I think he'll be a guy that can get plugged in. And even if Aiden Hutchinson does return to himself, which hopefully he does, then you plug him in on the opposite side. So I just think it's a pick in a position of need. I mean, defensive line is always something that's good to boost. So I think I could also see Walter Nolan there. But we'll go with James Pierce.
All right, Nick, you got 30
I got
with the Commanders.
Yeah, the Commanders. I'm gonna end the Malachi
Or
Starks
29,
slide
sorry.
here. I think this is a BPA pick, and I think Malachi Starks is the best player left on the board, regardless of position. But he also plays defense, which the Commanders need to go in that direction in the first round. I wouldn't mind if they got another receiver here if a guy like Starks is not there and like Walter Nolan's gone. But even then, they've got all right D tackles already, so I don't know if they really need D line that much. So I'm gonna take Malachi Starks here, beef up that secondary a little bit because that was by far their biggest weakness last year was their secondary. They couldn't really cover, which they did make moves getting Marshawn Lattimore to try to address it, but he's not getting any younger. So maybe a new age in the secondary with Malachi Starks and Emmanuel Forbes and company back there.
All right, now up with the Bills at 30. I'm going to go also in the secondary. I'm going to go Maxwell Harrison, give them another corner. They traded Kyer Elam because he was terrible. And right now they really don't have – their DB room is pretty bad. I mean, Taron Johnson's good. Then you have Dane Jackson, Christian Benford, and then Taylor Rapp, Bar Hamlin as your safety. So their secondary isn't great. And when you're in the playoffs, are going to more than likely be going up against the Patrick Mahomes, the Lamar Jacksons, the Joe Burrows. You need a good secondary to try to stop all those quarterbacks and the weapons that they have. And I think Maxwell Harrison is a great corner. He ran the fastest 40 out of any corner. He's very lengthy, very good in coverage. So I think he can be a plug-and-play guy for the Buffalo Bills in a team that could definitely use some secondary help.
I got the Chiefs now. Okay. This is kind of an interesting position here for the Chiefs. I'm not really sure based just on how this board looks right now, I'm not really sure how the Chiefs would be looking here.
They could use offensive line.
I was gonna say offensive line. I think they're good at they're not good at receiver, but I don't think they'll take a receiver. Walter Nolan is sitting here as a BPA pick, but you still got Chris Jones. I don't know that they need a tackle as much. I mean, Juwan Taylor and Jalen Moore. Interior wise, I guess you could maybe go with. Let's look on the interior O line, maybe. There's nothing jumping out too much there either. Is this a spot where maybe you just take like a BPA lineman? Maybe you just go. This is a really interesting pick for the Chiefs here. Let's go back to scroll down a little bit. Chiefs go. I'm really not sure where the Chiefs go here.
Jalen Milroe. No, I'm playing.
Jalen Milroe. No, they need line, but the line doesn't look great right here. They don't need a tackle is the thing that I'm hung up on. Like Josh Simmons, I would take him, but they don't need a tackle.
Are you sure about that?
Juwan Taylor and Jalen Moore they got.
Jalen Moore's not that good.
They could use a tackle.
They could use a tackle for sure.
I also think Jawan Taylor is not very good.
How old was he though?
He's 27, but he's the guy that's like
They got two young
lines up
backs.
off sides all the time.
I know, but it's
I
like
truthfully, I think
serviceable,
after the way
I
they
guess.
got manhandled in the Super Bowl, every
They
single
need a
That's
tackle.
true too. I guess
every
yeah.
single position on the O line is outside of center is like
Up for debate.
up for debate. Yeah,
Yeah. I guess you just go Josh Simmons here.
Yeah, I'd either go him or Donovan Jackson.
yeah, I'd
whichever one you
definitely
like
go
better.
one of the two.
Yeah,
I would go Josh Simmons here for sure.
yeah. Best player on the line left. So, and I think that's really Chiefs' biggest need. Really, maybe possibly only need.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Simmons at 31 is probably a steal.
Yeah, not probably. I am fully. If he did not get hurt, he would have easily been a top 10 pick.
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
no doubt in my mind. And he's way ahead of schedule in his rehab. He participated in Ohio State's pro day to like show everyone that I'm going to be good. I think he is an absolute. If the Chiefs get Josh Simmons, I am once again going to be like, of course. Like, of course he would fall to
But you
them.
can also say that for the Eagles here at this point.
Oh no, yeah, the Eagles here, they're going to make their defense even more disgusting with Walter
Amari
Nolan.
and Hampton.
Yeah. A little understudy for Saquon Barkley. Yeah, Omari and Hampton. Lovely spot for the Eagles here. No, I would take Walter Nolan here.
And he's going to be an absolute dog.
He is going to be a monster with the Eagles. Another just
Is there actually a chance he falls to the
Yes.
Eagles?
there's a
likely
very
chance.
good chance that he will go to the Eagles at 32.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
yeah.
Maybe the Bengals should just take him.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
He did. The Bengals did bring him in on a top 30 visit.
it did do that. But if
I
Walter,
don't think he's better than Jahad Campbell, though. You know.
he's really freaking good. The defensive line.
They're both very good in just different
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
The Eagles are probably just going to go defense here again because they don't need a running back. They don't need O-line. They don't need quarterback. They don't need receiver. They don't really need anyone on defense. They just won the Super Bowl with one of the most disgusting teams I've ever seen, but like they really don't need offense at all. So I think
It's a BPA pick.
it's a BPA pick, and Walter Nolan is the best player left on the board here at pick 32. And we're going to be wondering how Howie Roseman did it again. Come not this Friday, but next Friday, 10 days from now.
But you know, there does also it also just happens to keep falling in his lap.
I know.
mean, it's just
You
yeah,
gotta
I mean-
you gotta give him credit for guys like Zach Bond and like
last
offseason. He had probably the best offseason of any GM in NFL history, if we're being totally honest.
Yeah, but some of these guys, it's like they just keep falling into his lap. I mean, and I would
Fair play
say,
to him. Like
Yeah, I would say it's like, why is the rest of the league doing this? But I mean, when you've got guys on the board like there were, it's just a really deep class for defensive line, I think.
Yeah, I think any way you cut it, they're going to get an impactful defensive lineman
Player,
just because of how deep this class is. Like
Yeah.
Ezraku is really good. Obviously, Walter Nolan. There's a chance that James Pierce falls into the second round. There's a good chance that Shamar Stewart falls. Like they're going to have
their pick of the
Right.
litter.
2 or 3 guys that you're going to be like, oh, of course they fell down to them.
Yeah.
But that's what
Yeah.
happens when you got a super deep edge class. So, I mean, they're literally just going to retool. I mean, they lost Melton Williams, Josh Sweat, and they're just going to pretty much replace them immediately.
The Bengals should trade back into the first and take another defensive lineman.
That would require the Bengals to be aggressive, though,
And
in
they
the
won't do
draft
that.
process, and you know they're not doing that.
When we did the around the juggle one, we were like, well, we could look to trade down here, but they won't do that, so we're just gonna take a guy here.
I don't
Yeah,
think
the
they
board
should
was
trade
like
down.
insane. Like Mike, I don't know if Mike Green, I think might have been gone, but like Kelvin Banks was there, Michael Williams, Donovan Ezraku, Jahad Campbell. Like it was just an insane board. So I was like, well, if it was me, I would trade back a few spots, gain a couple extra picks, but.
But
We didn't
because
even
the
entertain
Bengals
it.
don't like to do anything.
Yeah. So, well, that's going to wrap it up for our mock draft 2.0. Make sure to tune in to the NFL draft live stream
Yeah.
on April 24th, just 9 days away. We will be covering the entire first round, be chatting it up. So always a good time when we do that. Always look forward to that that time of the year. So we're counting down the days to the NFL draft. We're looking forward to it. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for us today. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.